Hey everyone, welcome back to my web series Dating While Gray. This is episode 4, Broke Ass Brother. So, in the last episode, I had called it off with my Texas cowboy. And now I'm on to my life back in Ohio. And just at this point in my life, I was 40 plus years old and I had come to some realizations. I was free, I was no longer married, and I must say that at this time I started feeling myself. And by that, what I mean is I became quite a little hot in the ass. And I was in a new city. Um, I was having fun. There were so many men. And what I decided to do is I was going to sit down at the table and pull the cake up in front of me and choose any slice that I wanted. And I was going to have fun and the hell with everything else. I had been through the mailman, playa, and the Texas cowboy. So I'm back at home and I'm just living my life. And one day I was at work. And as I said in the previous videos, at that time I worked in an office where I was the only black person in the building. I like to say I was the only chocolate chip in the bag. So being the only chocolate chip in the bag, it came upon a time where my managers were going to be coming into town to evaluate the office that I worked in. Now, in the office that I worked in, it was a two-person office. It was me and a white girl that worked there. So because I was the only chocolate chip in the bag, I felt that I had to make sure my shit was in order when these upper managers came in. And so I had decided one day that I was going to stay after work and make sure that I got all my stuff in order and that anything that they asked for, I had it right there and just everything was going to be okay when they came in. So that day, what I did is I normally got off at 5:30, and when I got off, I hurried home, got my daughter from daycare, took her home to my son, made sure that they were okay, and then I went back to work. Now, I worked there until about 8:30, quarter to 9 or so. So while I'm there working, I had locked myself in the office because, again, I live in a city where there's a lot of rural areas, and some of these offices are often, places where there's not a whole lot around them. So just being cautious, I, came back into work and I locked the office door. So while I was working, I heard the doors start to jingle, and I could tell that whoever was on the other side had a key. So not knowing what was going on, I jumped up and grabbed I don't know if you guys know what a paper cutter is, but I grabbed a paper cutter and I was figuring whoever was coming in, I was going to lay it on them. So the office door opens up and there's a black guy standing there. I scared him and he scared me. When he opened up the door, I was standing there with the paper cutter above my head because I was about to fuck him up. He opened up the door, and when he realized what was going on, he started laughing. And so I said, who are you? What are you doing here? And why do you have a key to the office? So he told me, ma'am, please calm down. Don't hit me with that you got in your hand. So I put it down because I did realize if he had a key, then he was meant to be there. So what he told me is that he was part of the maintenance crew and that he was the manager and he was just checking the office to make sure that it had been cleaned that night. So I put the paper cutter down, apologized, and just explained that, I was there working late and that he had scared me. So He said no problem, and he asked me if the office was had been cleaned, and I told him not since I've been there, and I had been there since about 6 o'clock, and no one had come in. So I let him know that really the office didn't need to be cleaned. The only thing that we needed done was our waste paper baskets empty. So he came in, he emptied the baskets, and I kind of still didn't feel comfortable, so I didn't go back to my desk. I kind of stood, where he was around the door. So when he went back out in the hallway, I kind of followed him to the door because I was going to lock the door again. And he said that, he had been working there for a while and he had never seen me. He didn't even know that there were black people that worked in the building. So I told him, yes, I had been there, for a year now, and we just stood there and talked. So as I was talking to him, now remember I said that I was on my whole shit then. So as I was standing there talking to him, I asked him, was he married? And he said no. And I asked him, did he have a girlfriend? And he said no. So I asked him, could I have his phone number? Because he was kind of cute. So he kind of looked taken aback and he told me that I was bold and yes, I could have his phone number. So I got his phone number. We stood there talking a little bit more. I asked him, would he walk with me to the break room so I could get a pop? And he said, yeah. So as we walked, I was checking him out a little bit more. He was checking me out a little bit more. Now, as soon as I got his phone number, he started throwing game really hard. And at the time, I was all for it. Again, I was on my whole shit. So he walks me to the little break room to get a soda, and then I walked back to my office, and he made sure that I was locked in okay. And then, I finished my work and eventually went home. So I didn't call him that night. I waited a couple days and I called him and we talked and, on the phone, he was like really, really kind of aggressive. But just being on my whole shit, I was like, you know what? He's totally different from these other guys that I dated. So I'm just going to, follow this one through, see what this one is like. Again, I'm trying to find out now what type of men I like. So because I wasn't bringing anyone to my home, I didn't want to put me and my kids' safe place in jeopardy. I didn't allow him to pick me up for our first date at home. I met him at a restaurant. So we agreed to meet at a restaurant. We get there and I'm not really hungry because, this is the first date. And I was nervous, even though I was acting, all like I was, this woman that was a woman of the world and I was really aggressive. I really was shy in the inside. But I went along. I put on something that was like low cut, had all my goodies out. Back then, my body was still right, so I had all my goodies out. And I go to the restaurant, knowing I was looking kind of cute. I was still tight in the body. So I get there, and he's flirting outrageously. I just order a little drink, and now because I had been out in the world a little bit, I was tasting a little bit, meaning that I would go out and I would get a little frou-frou drink, something that didn't get you drunk, because we all know that Rachel cannot handle liquor or, strong drinks. So this time I knew how to pace myself, and because I had learned the name of one drink, I got me a Tom Collins, which tastes like lemonade, and I learned to sip on it instead of guzzling it so I wouldn't get drunk and act a fool. So it gave me a nice little buzz, and I flirted with him outrageously. I was acting overly sexy and just, being all in my womanhood. So we get ready to leave. We're standing out in the parking lot. He walks me to my car. So we're standing there talking, and then he asked me, would I like to go to a cookout with him, with his friends. So I thought about it, and at first I was like, I should go home. Sometimes when I let these dates go on, it ends up in disaster. Maybe I should go home. But when I looked at him and I was like, but you know what? He is kind of cute. I think I'm going to go. So I go. We have fun. He actually introduces me as his woman. I did not say anything because I didn't want to embarrass him. That I'm pretty sure these people wondered why we got there in separate cars, but they didn't say anything. So the people that we went over their homes for the cookout, they were really nice, and I really had a good time. With him, he was really touchy-feely at the cookout. I had wore like a kind of a halter dress, and actually he had untied the top of it and was trying to get to my goods. So I had told him he was a little bit too much. Leave me alone. Don't touch me all like that. He was getting a little bit much, but it was kind of exciting. So, it gets dark. I tell him, it's time to go. And we part ways with the agreement that, we will call each other and get together another time. So a few days later, I call him. Remember, I'm on my whole shit. So I say, let's get together. So this time I think we went to the movies. And, that's only a 2-hour thing. I picked a movie theater that was within 5 or 10 minutes of my house. So that way, when it was over, I didn't have that far to go home because remember, I wasn't letting him pick me up at my home. I didn't trust him yet. So we go to the movie. We have a really good time. This movie theater that we went to, outside of the movie theater is like a lounge and you can buy drinks, and they had lounge chairs. So actually we had went to see, I think the movie was supposed to start like at 5, but we sat there so long that we didn't end up seeing that movie. We saw the movie that was 2 hours later because we had sat out in the lobby talking and getting to know each other. And I liked him because he was a little aggressive and it made you feel womanly. So we go into the movie eventually, and we didn't see any of the movie. Basically, we were sitting there kissing and all this. So we leave. So I was really feeling him. And so I said, well, do you want to come over my house? And he said, yeah. I'm pretty sure he thought I meant come in and we were going to have some relations, but that wasn't it. So I invited him over, and I didn't take him upstairs in my house. My kids weren't there. I took him in my basement. I had a finished basement. So we sat down there, made out a little bit more. Eventually, he told me that he had to leave because he had to do a job tomorrow. What he explained to me is that he owned a cleaning company, and that they cleaned offices, like the office that I worked in, and that he had gotten a contract and that he needed to be at the job, the next day. He also at that time explained to me that he was going to be busy the next few days and he may not be able to see me, but he would definitely call me. So I was like, that's fine. Remember, I have kids and I didn't have a lot of time to play myself. So for the next few days, we just really called each other, um, you know, talked on the phone a lot more where I got a chance to get to know him. So after about this time, I felt comfortable with him picking me up from my home. So the next time we went on a date, I told him, come and pick me up. You now know where I live at. Come and pick me up. So when he came, we were going to go to another movie, and then after that we were going to go out to dinner. So before we left, the movie wasn't, when he came to pick me up, the movie wasn't set to start for a little while. So we sat in my house and talked. Now while we were sitting there, he was looking around my house and he was saying stuff like, well, you must make a nice little penny. You got a nice house. You drive a nice car. You seem to be one of them type of women that got it together. So at first, I was flattered because you don't want a guy to think that, you are after him for his money or anything like that. So at first I was flattered, but then he kept talking about like, how much you make a year. So, I looked at him and I was thinking, that's an inappropriate question. And then I just said something like, I make enough to take care of me and my children, and I do get child support, and I'm okay. I thought he was asking in a way where, trying to see if I was like a gold digger or something. So even though I felt funny, I didn't think anything about it. He was fun. He was a little aggressive, and this was a different type of guy than the ones that I dated before. So we go on to dinner. I mean, to the movies. We go out to dinner, and when we go out to dinner, I drank a couple of drinks. I was feeling myself, and this night I was being a wicked bad girl. So we get in the car in the parking lot of the restaurant. I basically throw him down on the seat, proceed to lay it on him, everything but the actual act. By that time, I guess the brother was steamed up. So he says, do I want to go back to his house? And I was saying, boy, let's go. So we go over his house. We get into it. I'm acting a fool. And I was thinking to myself, okay, so in this relationship, I'm going to be aggressive. I'm going to go after what I want. If I want him to bend over, I'm going to tell him. If I want him to do this, I'm going to tell him. And I'm just going to be all kind of bad. So I guess, I don't know, with men, I guess this kind of turned him on because I was taking the reins and basically ruling everything. The night ends, and of course he says, oh, I'm gonna call you. And I'm like, I'm sure you will. With all that I did, I'm sure you will. Now, I'm not saying that I went crazy. I wasn't swinging from chandeliers, but I gave him some fun that night, and he returned it. So I go home. I think he's fun, and of course I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a nice summer. So I go home, and I tell him, I'll call him. A few days later, I was feeling kind of bored. My kids are gone with their father. I called him and I said, you want to get together? He said, Rachel, I'm working. I don't get off from this job that I have tonight until, he told me a certain time that he got off, and I figured that was going to be too late. So we were talking, and he said, but what I'll do is I can call you because I have a break at such and such time. Basically, he was telling me that he went to lunch at a certain time. So I told him, I said, well, what about I'll bring you some lunch? And so he said, okay. So around the time that he had lunch, I had fixed myself up, had on me some sexy shit, went and got him a dinner from like Popeyes or something. I go up to his job. He comes out. He has a van, and we go sit in the van. And let me just say this. He did not eat dinner that night. His meal was me. And yes, I went there in his van. We got in the back, and I don't know if I'm embarrassed about it. I'll just say I had fun. And when I say that his dinner was me, his dinner was me. Okay? So I leave his job. He calls me, later on after I guess he got home and recovered from, having to go back to work after what happened in the van. And he calls me and he says, I want to get together this weekend, and, I'm going to come pick you up. So he comes over my house, and he starts talking about this charity youth group that he's starting in the neighborhood, and he goes into telling me that he wanted to work with teenage boys and help them, I guess grow into manhood. A lot of boys were growing up without fathers as he did, and he wanted to be a mentor. So I was like, oh, that's wonderful. Um, This is something that is needed in the black neighborhood. You know how you're going through all of that. And so he was like, yeah, that he was looking for funding for it. And, he was going to be having this fundraiser. And he asked me, did I want to give him some money on it? So at first I was standing there and I was like, well, what do you mean? Like, do you want me to come help out with the fundraiser or something? Because I'm not sure where he's going with this. So he said, well, I've been hanging out with you for a little while. I know where you work. I know you make good money, girl. And, I come to your house and you got it all set up like this. And I mean, you got a really nice house. He like, you driving this nice car. And he said, I know you got some money. So I'm sitting there thinking, no, this motherfucker didn't. Is he asking me for some money? And he knows that I'm a single parent now. And regardless to whatever it looks like I got going on, I'm trying to raise two kids. And I'll be damned if I be giving any man any money. I've never asked him for anything. And I can't believe he asking me for something. So now this is what all I'm thinking. So I wanted to be sure because, I don't want to break up with him because the brother could put it down. And, I was basically being really aggressive with him, and basically sexually I could tell him to do something and he would do it. So I was thinking, no, I don't want to break up with this, so let me make sure that this bastard ain't saying what I'm thinking he's saying. So I said, so in other words, you're asking me for some money? And then he was like, well, just make a contribution, I'm just saying, like we can go to the bank right now. So I was like, oh, hell no. You know how you thinking? I said, yeah, he is asking me to basically take my debit card and head on over to the bank and withdraw a few $100s for some shit I don't even know is valid. So I'm sitting there thinking, no, this one ain't gonna work. This broke ass motherfucker. So I stand there and I tell him, I said, look, I don't know about all this. I said, now I don't mind helping you, if you have some type of fundraiser and you need someone to sit at one of the tables or something and sell something or collect money from something. I said, but I'm a single parent. I told him that again. I said, I don't have money, extra money. Any extra I have is for my kids. So he stand up there and we get kind of in an argument. Like he was like, see, that's what I'm talking about. Brothers out here trying to help y'all sisters and, help y'all raise y'all goddamn sons. And you don't want to get up off any money. So I said, first of all, I don't need anybody to help raise my son. My son is an adult and he actually grew up with his father. So I don't mind helping other young men, but I'm not about to just hand you some money out of my bank account on some alleged fundraiser that you haven't. I could even see if we were at the fundraiser and as we're there, I see everybody else donating and then I'll give a couple dollars, but ain't about to be no 200-300. You crazy. I got kids that playing softball and all this shit, and every time you turn around they needing something. So I was like, you know what, I think that maybe we shouldn't go on this date. We get in an argument and I get kind of scared because, like I said, he was a little aggressive. So I try to play it off. I was like, well, look, just calm down. Come on, let's walk on outside and talk about this. Let's go in my backyard and sit down and talk. I was like, maybe I'm misunderstanding, but honestly, I knew what he was trying to ask. I just wanted to get him out my house so he don't fuck me up and leave me laying there bleeding or something, because my kid's gone for the weekend and he know they gone for the weekend, and he also knows that I really don't have family there. I was a little hazy on what family I had there because I didn't want him to think I didn't have any people there. He knew I was from another city. So we get out in the backyard, he's still talking shit, and I tell him, I said, well, look, I don't have no money to be giving people. And then I tried to act like, it might look like I have all this going on, but I'm just a struggling little black girl that's, out here trying to make it with my two kids. My baby daddy ain't, you go into the whole thing. So he kind of looked at me funny, but he calmed down from all that. So I was at a dilemma. Do I want to go on a date with him, or do I want to just cut this stuff short? So being the hooker that I was, and I was thinking about, well, hell, like I know I ain't giving him no money, but I'm not gonna miss this sex with him. So I said, look, I'm gonna go ahead and go on this date, and after tonight, I ain't gonna see him no more. So I go on the date with him. Child, when I think about that, I don't know what the hell I was thinking. So I go on the date with him, and the date was all right because I was knowing that this was going to be the last date. I go over to his house. We put it down again. I'm torn. Like, you know what? I don't know. I might give him $100 if it's gonna be like this. No, I'm just joking. I was thinking to myself, okay, Rachel, this is it. You ain't gonna be able to see him no more. So, get it all out your system. Every time he tried to rest, I was climbing up on him like, come on, boy, let's do this again. He was like, look, girl, you're killing me. We can do this tomorrow. I was like, no, let's get this done today, boy. Get it on back up. And then, eventually he tried to fall asleep. So when he fell asleep, I woke him up and was like, you know what, I gotta go home. And then the next morning, I came to my damn senses, and I said, you gonna have to cut him short because, when I went over his house, he asked me again about the money. So what I did is, I waited a little bit because I knew he had to recover from the night that I had given him. So I called him that day, and then I pretty much just told him, I said, look, I don't know what your game is, but you keep on asking me for money. And I said, and I have never in my life had, a man actually ask me for money. I said, even when I was married, I had my job, he had his job. We put our money together for bills, but it never came a time in any relationship that I had that the man literally was not asking for a few dollars. He was asking for a few hundred because he thought, I guess, that I had it going on. And to be totally honest, I literally was just a woman out here trying to pay daycare, car payments, house bills. So any money that I had, even though I did have a decent job, it was caught up in being newly divorced, learning how to make it with my kids on one income, making sure that even after the divorce, whatever activities that they were in prior to it, that, I kept them in some of the things that, they were used to having in their life. And it was no way that I was going to be giving no man my money. So I basically kicked him to the curb on the phone because even though the sex was good and, he was adventurous, I didn't see any future in it because if he was to keep on asking me for money, that was just not right. I grew up with brothers and I saw how my brothers treated women, and, neither of my brothers had ever been the type of guy that felt like he was going to basically be taking money for a woman or depending on a woman for anything. And I just didn't like the way that he approached me about it, and then actually got mad when I said no. And then after I said no, just continued to, ask me every now and again. So that was the end of Broke Ass Brother, because later on I found out that, these little, um, you know, contracts that he was getting with these office buildings were not as lucrative as he said, and pretty much he was maybe a little crooked, and I was kind of glad that I cut it off with him. So that is the end of this one with Broke Ass Brother. I hope you enjoyed it, and as always, if you have any questions, any comments, I welcome them. And look for episode 5. And again, I won't tell you the name of it, But let me just tell you, it has to do with religion. And I'll leave it at that. You have a wonderful day. And again, thanks for listening. Bye bye.